Hello there, cultists, and thank you for inviting us into your homes. Well, we almost made it through another year. Congratulations on surviving this far. Give yourself a pat on the back and come join us for a final Cult Classics of 2025. And if you've been with us throughout this season, then I hope you've enjoyed what we've had to offer. It's been a privilege having you with us. And if this is your first time for Cult Classics, dude, where have you been? You missed so much cool stuff, from our discussions on our Horde of Cult Booty to our interviews with Catherine Mary Stewart and Eddie Deason. We've had a good year here on the show. So, please go back and check some of those out. You'll be glad you did. However, the year is not quite over. We've got one more movie to talk about before we head into the holidays. And for that, we're heading on down to the murder capital of the world to hang out, ride the roller coaster and Ferris wheel, pick up a comic book or two, get a piercing, watch Tim Capello play some sax and gyrate, and maybe end the night with a love bite or two. Yes, this time around we're discussing the 1987 Joel Schumacher horror comedy, The Lost Boys. So put that TV guide down, turn the stereo up, and come with us for the next hour and change. I'm DK, and for the purposes of this episode, I'm the head of this blood-sucking Brady Bunch, which means, as always, I'm not alone. And have we got some guests for you this time around? First up, he's the host of Silver Screen Cinema Classics, my co-host on Silver Screen Regular Flavor, and an all-round nice guy. And I'm not just saying that because he runs this network. It's Mr. Mike Wilson.
Hello.
How are you doing, fella?
I'm okay. Not bad.
I mean, I'm glad to have you here. You've been pretty steadfast on supporting this show since its inception, so thank you for having me on as your partner in crime for these last few years.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for coming along with a lot of my cinema classics and silver screen regulars as well.
Yeah. Well, I've still yet to forgive you for Captain America, but
I'm still yet to forgive you for Buckaroo Banzai. So
yeah, I know. We're even now. So. Next up, we've got another regular who stepped up to the plate on more than one occasion, even on short notice. She's an artist and singer who you last heard on our Serenity episode back in March. Either way, she's back with us. It's Jenn. How are you?
I am doing all right because I am still dealing with the ick of being sick, and I also live in the US where everything's cuckoo. So I'm doing okay.
Now, normally that would be pretty much it for Cult Classics, but wait, there's more. It is the holiday season after all. So next up, we've got a couple of guests from our Bill and Ted Excellent Adventure review a couple of months ago. So allow me to say, Angela, welcome.
What's wrong with this picture? There's no TV.
This was one you were looking forward to, is that right?
Absolutely, yes. And another dose of Alex Winter. Whee.
You just can't get enough, can you?
Definitely not.
Well, it's good to have you here. And from that same episode, we've also got Ian, who took time out of his busy schedule to jump in on this one because he's also a fan of the movie. How do, fella?
How you doing? You all right?
I'm not too bad, mate. What about you? Excited to be here?
Yeah, definitely.
Nice
Love
one.
the Lost Boys.
Great. So finally, we've got a blast from the past who you last heard on our review of David Lynch's Dune way back at the beginning of season 2. She moved heaven and earth to be with us for this one, as if you've been with us for a long time, you'll already know she's listed it as a favourite cult movie of all time. It's Sandy Evanson. Hey, Sandy.
Hello. I also have a shelf in my fridge of root beer and double stuffs that no one's allowed to touch, so I'm really excited to talk about this.
Does it say old fart on the shelf?
Yes, coincidentally.
Nice one. Now we already know Sandy's score out of 5. We'll bypass the usual to and fro preamble and get right down to the movie itself, which is, of course, The Lost Boys. 1987 American comedy horror film directed by Joel Schumacher, produced by Harvey Bernhard with a screenplay written by Jeffrey Bohm, Janice Fisher, and James Jeremias. From a story by Fisher and Jeremias. The film stars Jason Patric, Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, Jami Gertz, Edward Herrmann, Bernard Hughes, Kiefer Sutherland, Jameson Newlander, and Diane Weist. The movie follows 2 teenage brothers who move with their divorced mother to the fictional town of Santa Carla, California, only to discover that the town is a haven for vampires. The title is a reference to the Lost Boys in J.M. Barrie's stories about Peter Pan and Neverland, who, like vampires, never grow up. Most of the film was shot in Santa Cruz, California from June 2nd, 86 and ending on June the 23rd, 1986 after just 21 days of filming. It was released on July the 31st, 1987 and was a commercial success, grossing over $32 million against a production budget of just $8.5 million. Critically, it was well received, though Variety panned the film, calling it a horrifically dreadful vampire teensploitation entry that daringly advances the theory that all those missing children pictured on garbage bags and milk cartons are actually the victims of blood-sucking bikers. Despite this, many looked on it reasonably favourably, with the film going on to win a Saturn Award for Best Horror Movie of 1987. Since then, the movie's been hailed as a cult classic, and 21 years after its release, the success of the film spawned a franchise with 2 low-budget sequels, Lost Boys: The Tribe and Lost Boys: The Thirst, although, we pretend that they don't exist, and 2 comic book series. And as ever with the movies we feature here on the show, The Lost Boys can be found in both digital and physical formats wherever you're listening from, although apparently it's not that widely available to stream. Now, it took me ages to get around to this one. When I was young, I'd pass a movie poster for this on a bus shelter every day on my way to school. I would see this 5-foot-something picture of Kiefer Sutherland's face, and I had no idea who he was at the time with that never grow old tagline. And I just thought, well, that looks fucking stupid. It's weird. I had it pegged as a kind of a proto-Twilight years before that abomination was shot into existence. So I wrote it off. It wasn't until a good while later that I saw a feature in Fangoria discussing the vampire makeup. And I began to realize I may have been wrong slightly. We've mentioned it before on the show, but there was a period in the late 80s where VHS tapes and players became ubiquitous, and studios would release everything on tape. So as such, because it was a more kiddie-friendly horror, my parents got me this one Christmas. I finally saw it, and I kind of fell in love with it. It was funny. It was it was 80s stylish, and everything about it just clicked for me. So ended up with a soundtrack, which was one of the most played vinyls, and it's still on my MP3 player all these years later. So kids, this is a reminder from your Uncle DK saying never judge a book or film by its cover. So yeah, how did you guys come to this one? I'll not include you in this, Mike, because listeners, just letting you know, might watch this for the first time in preparation for this episode. I know, right? But for the rest of you, what was your first experience? And I'll throw this open to anybody who wants to answer.
I don't think I saw it in the cinema because I was 15 at the time when it came out. I've seen posters of it everywhere, but managed to persuade the parents to let me rent it from Blockbuster. And after watching it, it was like, yes, this is absolutely brilliant. I got the poster. It took me years to actually find somewhere that sold a T-shirt, unlike these days where you can just go anywhere and find whatever you want. But yeah, I had the big poster behind my above my bed saying, sleep all day, party all night, never grow old, never die. It's fun to be a vampire. My parents thought it was a phase. They were wrong.
My sister went through this vampire movie kick for a while, and we saw a lot of weird vampire movies, including one that the vampires are like aliens. And this was included in the lineup. Our dad was always very much into horror films, so they had no problem with us watching these movies, even though I think this came out when I was like 1, so there's no telling how old I was when we finally watched this. I just remember that I did, and that I think my sister was in high school at the time, so maybe I was in high school or junior high.
I was 11 when this came out, but I don't think, judging by my thirst for Alex Winter, I share this with Angela, I must have been at least like 13 when I actually did see it. And I don't remember the first time seeing it, but I remember it was on repeat once I did see it. I watched it over and over and over again. Like you, got the soundtrack and followed all these guys in the teen magazines when they would come out. If one of them was on the cover, I was getting it. So, but the movie itself, I remember just loving it so much. And became such a big part of my whole being in my early teen years that even later, my 20s, my mother bought me like a Lost Boys T-shirt because she knew, I loved it so much. But that was my first experience with it.
I do remember watching it first time because we rented, I think it was RoboCop and Predator on the same bill on the same night. All three were excellent films, and Lost Boys just stood out as being like unique, the first sort of cool vampire film I'd seen, and obviously the soundtrack was awesome as well.
Would you say, is it a regular rewatch for you all?
Yeah, definitely. At least twice, if not 3 times a year.
Not as often for me, but yeah, I definitely put it on maybe every few years just for nostalgia's sake.
It's in my lineup of Halloween movies that I watch every year.
Blu-ray set recently, so yes, I have watched those other two, which we will not mention because, ugh.
You wouldn't recommend them, Angela?
No.
I mean, have your impressions changed since you first watched this one?
It is showing its age now, but it's still I still have great affection for it. It's sort of nostalgic, I think, because back then I was looking at all the people, the characters, all these weirdos and misfits, and I was thinking, those folks look like me. I want to be just like that. And it's like an old friend you keep coming back to.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's holding up for me. It's been a few years since I watched it, and I watched it last night and still found myself just really engrossed in it. It's got great pacing, pulls you back in. A few cringy parts, but for the most part, it's so rewatchable for me. I really loved it.
Nice.
It's always worth watching for the dog. You got a beautiful husky on the movie. You got to watch it over and over just for the dog. No, it still holds up in its kind of its genre of movies. It's like I still watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer regularly. It has that little niche that it fits in. It's like it's still worth watching over and over again.
Yeah, it has been cited as an inspiration for the creation of the concept that became the movie and TV versions of Buffy. And apparently, they invented the phrase "vamp out," which passed into common usage on the TV show. We're going to look at the writing, and I have to bring this up, Mike. That when you were watching it, you were kind of like messaging me all the way through, and I'll not get into what you thought about it, but. Yeah, according to the writers, the character name of Lucy was chosen to reflect, obviously, Lucy Westenra from Bram Stoker's Dracula. And it was just right at the end, and you went, oh my God, she's called Lucy. I get it.
Yeah, I was quite proud of myself. I really thought I'd put something together there with the big reveal of who the actual head vampire was and that he's wooing somebody called Lucy. And I was like, oh, I totally get what they did there. And then you were like, yeah, everybody already knew that, dude.
Yeah, well, I mean, the original screenplay, which, as I said, it was written by Jenn Fisher and James Jeremias. It was originally about a bunch of Goonie-type 5th and 6th grade kid vampires, with the Frog Brothers being apparently chubby 8-year-old Cub Scouts. And Star was initially a boy instead of a love interest. The original inspiration came from James, who caught upon the notion that Peter Pan could fly, visited Wendy and her brothers at night, and never grew old. The simple notion that Peter Pan was a vampire was the genesis for the actual story. So yeah, I mean, I'll come back to you straight away, Mike. I mean, you've watched this most recently for the first time. So what do you think with regards to the writing? Do you think it's there's a decent little storyline going on here, the dialogue?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to come across terribly, but I had no idea because I didn't want to research this or do anything about it other than what I'd seen, like DVD cover art and stuff like that. So I had no idea that it was supposed to be a horror comedy. I always thought it was deadly serious. I thought it was like one of those things that, was around of a certain era and was a proper horror movie, but a teen horror. Because, we had a lot of them in the 80s, which, they weren't really excessively gory or whatever, but you would class them as teen horror movies. And so I thought it took itself really seriously. And I genuinely, you haven't sort of embarrassed me with this one yet, but I wasn't texting you the whole way through, but I did message you about halfway through and was like, this is absolutely ludicrous. I didn't realize this was supposed to be a comedy, which was me being sarcastic. And you texted back, yes, it is in fact a horror comedy. And I was like, okay. That now puts some things firmly in place for me, I guess. Because for the first half, it doesn't like it could go either way. It's not really committing to how ridiculous it wants to get. And I can't remember what the line was. It was something stupid.
It was my own brother, goddamn vampire. Just wait till Mom finds out.
Yeah,
Yep.
just tell Mom or something. And I was like, this can't be serious. And you were like, no, it's not, dumbass. Oh, okay. So once I realized that, I went with the journey and was like, oh, I get you. So it's sort of a pseudo parody, in which case the writing's really clever. I kind of wish they'd hallmarked it a bit better in the first half of the movie, maybe, so I didn't feel as dumb. But I'm sure if I was to give it a rewatch, I'd notice a lot of, side things that I probably just didn't pick up on.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I'm going to throw it open to anybody who wants to talk about it here. I mean, what are your impressions with regards to the writing on this one?
Well, it's well put together. It was one of those films there's never really a dull moment in it. It just seems to pace itself quite well, and it's one of those films, because a lot of films nowadays have got a problem where they're just on for too long. Like the writing's just ridiculous. It's like, let's just write a novel and turn it into a film. It's like, no, films are supposed to be, snappy, straight to the point, and let's watch a film, enjoy it for an hour and 20 minutes or whatever, and come away and say that were a good film. And this has got it bang on.
I really liked the writing. I thought, the funny moments were funny, and they did some clever things with the more popular vampire tropes. I just thought it was well written, like the pacing. I thought it went pretty quickly, how they pulled Michael into their gang, and the reason why we find out later, even how they kind of make us believe that Max is the head vampire, and then, oh, well, obviously he's not. He passed all the tests, and then they throw that back in at the end at us. So I really liked the light twists and turns in it.
I've got to ask, before anybody else jumps in, did that kind of fake out on Max? Did it fool anybody, or did it, did you kind of see through it?
I was going to actually mention that because it didn't fool me, because I'm way too versed in kind of vampire stuff. So the second that he needed an invite to get into the house, and it was making a point of, like, it really focused on that, I was like, well, then he clearly is a vampire. Otherwise, why would they make such a big deal out of this? So it didn't really, unfortunately.
12-year-old me.
I think
I probably would have done if I was 12, yeah.
Yeah. The thing that I didn't kind of get is like where... obviously, I don't know whether they threw this in just to throw people off, but like the bit where he's just been on that sort of date with her, but then he goes back to his house and they kind of appear on the motorbikes trying to scare him or something. It's a bit weird, and it's like, what was that about? It didn't make any sense.
I just look at that as if you don't necessarily like your boss. But yeah, I think this has got some snappy dialogue in. It's an 80s film, so they generally do. But, the aforementioned line with, just wait till Mom finds out, death by stereo, the burn rubber does not mean warp speed. I think it's got some nice little...
I also made a note of the most 80s line ever. And that's when he goes, no TV means no MTV. That's just like, yep,
oh,
this is the 80s.
Yeah.
People actually watched MTV and it had music on it.
He had music on MTV. Yeah, it is very 80s in his approach to dialogue. But I think there's some nice little scenes. You've got the obligatory... writing in of kids saving the day. They're all going around on bikes, which is, kind of ubiquitous for an 80s movie. Yeah, I think like you said, Ian, it goes on at quite a pace. As you say, it never kind of lets up. It keeps going. And I think that's to its testament, because as you say, if it was filmed today, you'd be looking at like an extra hour. And there'd be a hell of a lot of angst in there. And, you'd be going through A to F to get back to B. So yeah. So does anybody else have any notes with regards to the writing, things that you notice that maybe we haven't touched upon?
So I have one thing of the mom moves them there to live with her dad, and she just lets them go and run amok on their own with all of these flyers everywhere saying missing kids.
Yeah.
If that had been my mom, we would have never been allowed to leave the house.
Yeah, not just the flyers, by the way. Isn't that like graffiti that's like murder or murder capital of the world?
Right.
Yeah.
Murder capital of the world. But it was the 80s.
Yeah.
It was like the bit where
Murder didn't happen to us.
Where Michael's watching that, where they're both watching that show, the sax guy, and then Michael sort of leaves him to go and pursue her.
Yeah.
That did remind me though of the exposition-y beginning. That was a little annoying and probably bad writing. Just like you're the only person I know or whose divorce actually made their life worse. And I think Mike even said something like literally 30 seconds before that, we're broke, you know? So it's just like a little exposition-y there in the beginning.
Yeah. But I mean, in its favour, it does kind of flash past that as quickly as possible. It kind of gets it out of the way and then jettisons it.
Yeah.
I do have one other criticism, but it's not just of this movie, by the way. It's something that happens quite a lot in movies that need to get rid of a whole lot of enemies. And it's when it does that whole, if we kill the head vampire, the others will either die or turn back. I really hate whenever that trope comes up.
So yeah, apparently Richard Donner was going to direct this and then left, and then Mary Lambert was brought in, but she left due to creative differences. Although it doesn't necessarily go into why these creative differences occurred. When asked why he did the film, director Joel Schumacher, in a typical Joel Schumacher kind of response, said, "Vampires are hot. They're the only erotic monsters. Frankenstein is not hot." So. Yeah, that's pretty much his summation of why he took the job, really. So yeah, we're getting onto the direction now, and yeah, I do like the direction in this. I like the way it starts. You know, I love the whole opening over the water and then flying over what essentially is Santa Cruz boardwalk. I think it's got some good little tricks in there, and you know, I just wondered what you guys thought with regards to the direction of this thing.
Well, I love the pacing of it. I mean, like I said before, it is fast moving. It keeps you interested every step of the way. Very atmospheric as well.
What do you think? I mean, when it came towards the end, bearing in mind that, you know, and I'm talking to you, Angela, and you, Sandy, that they got rid of your favourite already. Did it feel like they dispatched them all a little too quickly for you, or do you think it was you know, just the right pace when it came to things like that?
Well, it sounded about right for kids.
I thought it was just right. I really liked it. Yeah, I thought that they got the one in the cave, and then it was like climax number 2 when they were, holing up in the house and waiting to be attacked there. And then now we have Max, and then now we have the, Grandpa's big finish. I thought it was all really great.
Nice one. Yeah, I mean the aerial camera shots where it's flying, especially that where they suddenly realize that Nanook's chained to the fence outside. There's again, you might disagree, Mike, but I think there's quite a bit of tension there where they're running out to get it, and obviously, one of them slips and that kind of thing. But I do think
they're coming.
Yeah,
it's just so over the top, man. Honestly,
very intense.
I mean, when you realize it's designed to be a parody, you kind of forgive it. But like I said, for the first hour, I was just like, my God, this is just, what is like you said, the long lingering shots, the deep saxophone music, the atmospheric, like fog off the water. I was like, what on earth? This is pure Joel Schumacher. Right down to the kid having just the most homoerotic bedroom in the world.
Yeah,
that kid is gay.
We're going to get onto this. Yeah, Sam, Corey Haim, he's got a poster of Rob Lowe on his closet door. It's sparked years of debate about whether or not Schumacher, as an openly gay man, was making a subtextual statement about Sam's sexuality by putting a picture of a male heartthrob on his closet.
There was more than one that I noticed.
Oh no, I can remember posters for like reform school girls and shit like that. But yeah, that's the one that stands out. Schumacher also
wasn't he holding his shirt up a bit in that?
Yeah, it was kind of like a sexual pose almost. Bearing in mind that it's plastered on the closet. He also has Sam wearing an ear stud, riding a pink bicycle, and being more fashion conscious than any other character. And on the DVD commentary, Schumacher says that it wasn't a conscious thing. He just chose Rob Lowe as a pin-up because he'd recently directed Lowe in St. Elmo's Fire. And I didn't even know he directed St. Elmo's Fire. Yeah, exactly.
That is news to me.
Yeah. So...
I hate to say it, but did you notice when they were killing the vampires, at least in the cave, that the blood was sparkly?
Yeah,
Yep.
I've actually got that.
That's the
in-
80s for you.
Yeah, yeah. In the 2007 documentary Bloodsucking Cinema, Corey Haim said that all the blood had glitter in it to give it a shimmering effect and was slimier than other fake blood. So yeah, kind of blaming you for what came after Lost Boys. I mean, the effects were by Greg Cannon, who did things like Vice, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Pirates of the Caribbean. So
I don't know. I thought myself it was wrestling a little bit with what kind of tone it wanted to be. Like I said, especially at the start, because it goes, like I said, it's like a goth music video type thing, and it's also deadly serious and emo, and then you realize it's stocked full of jokes, especially when you get the Frog Brothers, who I did love, because when you realize they are an actual joke. But yeah, and I think it's, like I said, it's the clash of the director and perhaps the intent of the movie, which was, like I said, Schumacher thinking he's making something serious. And a lot of the actors, some of the actors are the same. I think Kiefer Sutherland and Jami Gertz, is it, the lead actress? They kind of think they're making like Romeo and Juliet for a new generation, and not this kind of cheesy kind of, and I don't see how you can possibly think that when you'd acted alongside Corey Feldman and the other guy whose name escapes me, being the Frog Brothers, because it's just like, come on. Nobody's that bad an actor. They're doing it on purpose. This is, you've got to go with it, really.
Yeah. When I watched it, and it was only a few days ago I watched it in preparation for this, it still looks really good to me. The colors are bright. There's some really nice shots, and to me, direction-wise, I think it holds up really well. And that's, like I said, I was shocked that it was a Joel Schumacher.
I was actually surprised by the lack of special effects, because I guess, again, for the time, watching it now, I was just like, oh, wow, I didn't realize how much happened off camera, or where we only saw half of something. I never realized that before until watching it more recently, that they did so much with so little, basically.
I did pick up on that a little bit at the start, because I have written a note, pardon the language, I've written a note that was like, I wish they'd just show us these people flying and stop cock teasing flight. Because it's all from like point of view. It's like something's flying towards you, but we're not going to see what it is. Like the first half of the movie, and I was like, get on with it. Jeez.
You mean like with the guard and they're ripping the top of the car?
The first
off,
couple of murders, yeah, it's kind of like, it's all from the point of view of the vampires flying at them. And I'm like, I get it, and it looks stylish, and it's kind of got the Evil Dead camera pan zoom thing going on, but at a certain point, show us somebody freaking flying.
Yeah, but it's also cheap, mate.
That's what I'm saying. I get it. I get that it was, it would have been way too expensive to do that, and that's why they filmed it that way. And it does fit the style, like I said, of the slightly over the top, point of view works for that.
You've mentioned how tonally it's kind of off-putting. How do you feel it is in the, I guess I would say, the pure horror moments, other than the comedy? Do you think it pulls that off? And I'm not talking about maybe the ripping the top of the car off, but the part where they're stalking those surf Nazis.
No, because it just comes across as really cheesy and 80s and music video-ish to me.
Oh,
no,
really?
There is moments in it where it kind of, he's biting his head and stuff like that, and then there's the bits sort of at the end when they are getting killed in the bathtub, and it's all like almost Gremlins, like with the physical guts and stuff appearing and stuff like that. So it does get a little bit gross, doesn't it?
I think that's more kind of horror comedy than straight up horror, because like I said, the Gauls played more kind of Gremlins, Beetlejuice, tongue-in-cheeky kind of thing. It's not supposed to be.
Yeah, but like Evil Dead 2 was kind of comedy horror,
But
when it comes to, I'll ask you, Ian, when it comes to things like that scene where they're stalking those surf Nazis and they're all in that tree and they're watching them, and then do you think that works as a horror, or Mike? Do you think it's down to seeing it when you were younger rather than Mike going in as a cynical adult?
A bit of both. I've still yet to show this to my kids, but they will watch it. But it does set the tone of like, it separates the comedy. It gets rid of that for a little minute, and you go, oh, they are vampires and they mean business and they fucking going to take them out. So it works as a sort of horror segment.
It would if it was better directed with better music, but for me, I'm sure I told you this already, Diki. I was just waiting for Meatloaf to come around the corner and start singing any moment.
Oh,
Yeah, but if you notice in that scene though, the music does die down. You don't get any music in that part. It's just straight to the point in it. So
I see that I didn't register that. The only part I registered was when it was trying to be deathly serious, and then "Cry Little Sister" came blaring onto the soundtrack, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Talk about
Yeah.
that's one of the best songs,
sorry,
dude.
but isn't that song like? I'm sorry, it's almost ancestral. That song's like, it's a beautiful sounding song, but it's like when you think about the lyrics, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Yes, it does have very incestual overtones.
I'm going to come back to you, Sandy, because you were going to say something about with regards to the horror aspects of it.
Just that I do remember on my rewatches at that younger age, 12, 13, that part around the bonfire, I never could watch. I always covered my eyes every single time. To me, that was very scary.
Again, it's what it doesn't show. It keeps cutting away from the kind of like gory aspects, and I know you mentioned it, Ian, when he's biting into his head. You kind of see it, but it doesn't.
It cuts to Michael, doesn't it? Turning sort of thing.
Yeah. I think as far as direction goes, I think he pulls that off quite well.
Yeah, imagining what Michael was watching, because he couldn't even look at it. He even kept looking away. The camera would show him grimacing and recoiling at what he was watching.
It was only noodles. Relax.
I would say I have to disagree with Mike about the opening sequences where you can't see the vampires. I think the fear of the unknown, the unseen, is far greater than actually seeing the thing. For me, from a psychological aspect.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think it was just because I've seen so many of these things that I was like, I get what you're going for, and I would rather have seen more, while recognizing that the limitations of any filmmaker in the 80s of trying to make three, a Kiefer Sutherland on strings flying at you look sinister is going to be, all right, let's maybe just not show it. You know what I mean? So I get it.
In fact, that's a good point as to its aging well in my eyes. The fewer effects, special effects there were, more practical effects, those things age better. Them not showing that is a credit to the film's rewatchability in later years, because there isn't all of that cheesy stuff that wouldn't have aged as well.
And credit where it's due, what they don't show you when they're kind of falling off the bridge and they're kind of flying and they're fine, but Michael's still left on there kind of like, what the fuck, are they all dead or whatever? And I was like, that's actually a really clever and effective use, and you don't have to see anything because it's all like fog and stuff that they're kind of falling into, but they're there and you can picture it in your head. I was like, okay, I actually like what you've done with this, because you've made your limitations into a strength, and it makes it a much more tense scene.
Yeah. So, with regards to the casting, Jason Patric, he was initially reluctant to appear in it due to the script content and genre. He did turn down the role multiple times before Schumacher's persistence paid off. Apparently spent weeks explaining this vision of horror and comedy. Patrick is quoted as saying, "He eventually wore me down." He said, "We made a deal. I promised I wouldn't have to wear the makeup, the teeth, or have to fly around. Of course, Schumacher lied." So, yeah, he said he'd worked with Jami Gertz and put her forward to play Star. Apparently, the role had been conceived of as a blonde waifish girl, but Patrick convinced Joel she could bring a kind of a sexier, darker quality to the film. Yeah, with regards to Corey Haim, he says, "We read together for the part of my brother Sam, and I told Joel, that's the guy. He'd come over to my house and we'd play baseball, go to the pier, which created an unsaid physicality. We had a close bond, and he was wonderfully imaginative in an improvisational way. We played off each other." So, yeah. In the film, Patrick's character Michael symbolizes the film's core themes of youth, family, and temptation, as Michael delves deeper into a group of charismatic yet dangerous individuals paralleling drug addiction. His transformation unfolds alongside the film's fantasy elements. Patrick says this kid is an outsider. He's about to become a man and has to leave the family, and he gets involved in this group that seems sexy and dangerous. It's a drug analogy. He drinks the blood and there's something addictive about it. His personality begins to change and there are things going on he doesn't understand. Weirdly enough, on about Kiefer Sutherland, Jim Carrey was briefly considered for the role of David.
Well, he played in another vampire movie later.
He did. It was in 1985's Once Bitten, so that's what caused him to be considered for this one. And you mentioned earlier, Mike, that some of these people were obviously treating it as a comedy, but some were treating it as deadly serious. Do you think it kind of worked with regards to the casting, or?
Yeah, but like I said, it's kind of weird that, and it's part of the kind of, for me, the tonal dissonance of the film generally. That, like I said, there's kind of the two groups of cast that are doing their own thing, but the film itself is kind of doing its own thing. Like that, it doesn't fully commit to being like, you know, it doesn't know whether it wants to be Dracula Dead and Loving It or Bram Stoker's Dracula, and so it just aims for this weird halfway point where half of the people are in one film and half of them are in the other, and. Yeah, I mean, they're both great at what they're doing. I mean, the ones that are doing the serious emo teen vampire movie are very good at that, and the comedic timing and the comedy chops on like Corey Haim and Corey Feldman and Jameson Newlander are brilliant. If that's, you know, it's when you put them together in a scene that you just think, ooh, the reality is shattering a little bit here. Especially when you were saying like, oh, I thought they were dispatched way too quickly. I was like, any longer of having to take the sort of Frog Brothers seriously as a threat to these guys, and you'd be out. You'd be like, no, come on. I mean, the idea that they're these brutal vampire killers is clearly a mistake, you know?
Well, it's like, I look at it and it's like kind of the kids versus the serious monster kind of thing. It makes me think of like Fright Night.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you've got the kids they're kids. So they're going to react in these ways that are like, they think is dead serious, but it's actually totally comical. And then you've got the villains that are like, I'm dead serious because I am a villain. So it kind of fits in that kind of respect. And then you've got the teenager who's caught in between, and he's of course going to be the more serious because he's like, they're vampires. Of course, this is deadly serious.
Yeah, this was Corey Haim and Corey Feldman's first movie together. They were excluded from the nightly parties held by the older actors. So Haim and Feldman bonded as they stayed in the hotel watching movies and visited the local arcade. They obviously went on to feature in the Two Coreys trend, in which they starred together in a number of teenage films, although none
Didn't
of them.
Didn't they do a reality show together called that as well?
They might have done. I couldn't honestly say. I just remember License to Drive. I can't really remember anything else that they were in. Apparently, Sutherland broke his right wrist while doing a wheelie on his motorcycle, and he had to wear gloves on set to conceal the cast. His motorcycle for the movie was then adapted so he could operate with his left hand only. So most of the time, it's yeah.
I thought the casting was pretty cool. Nobody really stands out as don't sort of belong. I never liked Max, but I don't know whether that's just the guy himself or whether he was just playing that part anyway. Maybe not the actor himself. I just thought he sort of didn't fit in, if you know what I mean, a little bit.
Yeah.
Like an odd sort of look to him almost, but maybe that was intentional.
I do like the bit where they're trying to dissuade you from thinking that he's the bad guy. So there's that part in the restaurant where she goes to answer the phone and then she runs out and he's just sat there looking like, watching her running out to the car. Yeah.
I did kind of a theory on the Frog Brothers though. I can't, like when you sort of see their parents for a brief moment, they look like hippies just slumped in a corner.
Yeah.
I think they're vampires. And that's why they're doing what they're doing.
All right. That's a nice little theory.
Nobody really stands out, but I think that the cast worked well together. Like as far as casting a group of people, especially the family unit, I thought they just seemed very believable as a family unit. I was surprised to hear you say, was it Patrick and Corey that spent time together?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that makes so much sense to me because they were just very believable as brothers where they could comfortably touch each other, you know, and hang on to each other. So I think the casting in that regard was really good. The only people who like are non-charismatic, I feel, are the blonde hairband vampire and the brunette hairband vampire guy. Those two, they're just very forgettable, but I think the whole rest of the cast is magnetic.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was particularly drawn to Kiefer Sutherland because I think this was the first time I'd seen him in anything. So I was very upset when he got killed off at the end there. Alex Winter also stood out. I thought, he looked really cute. So then 2 years later, Bill and Ted, I was like, ah!
And equally upset that he was the first one killed off.
Yeah.
So yeah, several thousand local residents answered the casting call for family-type street people, punk surfers, roller skaters, and one brain-dead hippie. Some 2,000 of the applicants were signed for several nights' work on what turned out to be the largest film production ever brought to the area at that time. So yeah, Santa Cruz, which obviously Santa Carla was based on and was filmed in, it was once plagued with the reputation of being the murder capital of the world because of a series of brutal murders in the early 70s. So yeah, with regards to production design, I mean, we've talked about the fact that it was the vampire's point of view, and so you didn't see that, and we've talked about the glitter. But with regards to the special effects, what we did see with the makeup, the vampire stuff, I mean, how do you think that holds up?
I've always preferred practical effects, so the makeup, it's so much better than when they try to do a digital cover of it or something like that, because there's always issues with mapping and staying in. I think it still holds up. It still works.
Yeah.
I should say, I know that it really hurts for the actor, but there is still something that's really freaking cool about having those colored contact lenses in. It just works. Yeah. Sometimes it's simple things, isn't it?
Again, if we go back to that scene at the bonfire, when it keeps cutting back to Michael and you see his eyes, and you just think, awesome image.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I was surprised how the vampire faces still stood up and actually give credit to them for not overly impeding the actors' facial expressions and talking, like the teeth didn't get in the way. So it was just really well done.
Yeah. Which brings us to the sound design. Now, and obviously it's one of those films, we've already kind of touched upon it, but it's got one of those soundtracks that a lot of people can relate to. Apparently, Kiefer Sutherland, he was originally reluctant to star in the film until he heard that Joel Schumacher had lined up NXS and Jimmy Barnes to sing some of the songs on the soundtrack, and that's what caused him to sign up. Schumacher's use of orchestral music in the film is what convinced Andrew Lloyd Webber to hire him to direct Phantom of the Opera. Tim Capello, the oily saxophone player on The Dock, he made a name for himself by playing in the touring band of Tina Turner during her spectacular comeback tours in the mid-80s. He now features prominently during many tracks on the synthwave group Gunship. I'm a big fan, so yeah, he's still and he still looks pretty much the same, which is kind of fucking scary. So yeah,
all that oil.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a vampire.
That totally makes sense. Hydrating, moisturizing.
Yeah, it's basically mummified himself, I think.
It's like an embalming fluid.
Yeah. One final thing I did think was a little amusing. 2 songs on the film soundtrack, Cry Little Sister by Jerry McMahon and I Still Believe by Tim Capello. They are 2 of the Korn lead singer Jonathan Davis's favorite all-time song.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, sound design. I mean, what did you guys think to that? And obviously, it's not just the soundtrack, but the sound itself, the sound effects.
Everything's awesome about it. I mean, just like the soundtrack is like one of my, I regularly play the soundtrack. It's on my, SoundCloud and everything. So it's definitely one I go back to. And also just like the actual orchestral side of it was pretty cool as well and sets the tone well.
Yeah, it would be nice if you could have got a soundtrack of just the orchestral stuff, but
yeah, tell me about it.
Could you not? It's weird.
No.
The orchestral stuff I thought was a little bit too, like I said, emo, goth, all the words I've already kind of overused. But the actual soundtrack choice, with the exception of Cry Little Sister, which was just a little bit too much, I thought I loved the choice of People Are Strange to set up the tone. I thought that was really genius, especially when you think that it's kind of, the song itself is kind of a bit tongue-in-cheek. It's got that nature that the film, which I didn't pick up on because I'm an idiot, but if I'd realised that, that's what they go with.
I love the soundtrack very much. Outside of the soundtrack, though, I don't remember anything else really popping out at me as being particularly noteworthy.
Well, it's kind of thing. It's like you have nothing that really pops out at you, which means that their sound effects and everything were on, which means that it has that suspension of belief still of, hey, this is real. This actually, the dog's actually breaking through the gate. Guy's actually squirting out fluid. These things, these sounds actually fit, and the timing was good. The soundtrack is really good, in my opinion. It was good.
I do like sort of half of the actual soundtrack itself. What I can cherry pick what I like from there. What I particularly like, though, is in places where there's an absence of music, such as when there are the rail tracks, and then there's no music, and then you can just hear the guys down below in the fog whooping.
Yeah.
I think it set more of an atmosphere by not having the music.
Coming on to the legacy of this, Kiefer Sutherland's character David, he was impaled on the antlers in the movie, but he doesn't explode or dissolve as the other vampires do. He was intended to have survived, which would have been picked up in a sequel, The Lost Girls. Scripts for this and other sequels circulated over the years, and Joel Schumacher made several attempts at a sequel during the 90s, but nothing came to fruition. A direct-to-DVD sequel, Lost Boys: The Tribe, was released in 2008. Corey Feldman returned as Edgar with a cameo by Corey Haim. Kiefer Sutherland's half-brother, Angus, played the lead vampire in that one. A third film, Lost Boys: The Thirst, was released on DVD on October 12th. Feldman served as an executive producer in addition to playing Edgar, and Newlander returned as Alan Frog. A fourth film was discussed, as well as a Frog Brothers TV series, but with the dissolution of Warner Premiere, the project never materialized. David makes a reappearance in the 2008 comic book series Lost Boys: Reign of Frogs, which serves as a sequel to the first film and a prequel to Lost Boys: The Tribe. And in October 2016, Vertigo released another comic book miniseries, The Lost Boys, where Michael, Sam, and the Frog Brothers must protect Star from her sisters, the Blood Bells. Yeah, in December 2023, a musical adaptation was reported to be in development, directed by Michael Arden with music by The Rescues. It was announced on January 27th of this year that the musical will arrive on Broadway spring 2026 at the Palace Theatre. So there's another turn off the dark for you to look forward to, people. And finally, in September 2021, a new film was announced to be directed by Jonathan Entwistle from a script by Randy McKinnon, starring Noah Jupe and Jaden Martell. Whether this is another sequel or a remake, reboot, I can't say. So before we get to that, I was just going to ask, what's the one thing that keeps you coming back to this? And I'll start with you, Mike. Do you want to come back to this one?
Yeah, definitely. I want to watch it again. I mean, I bought it anyway, so I would have to justify that to myself. But no, I mean, I've bought things and then not been sold them on if I didn't like it. But I thought it was an enjoyable experience in the end. Like I said, and I want to watch it now that I'm aware of what the actual genre and tone of it is, so that I can from the start kind of know what to expect. Like I said, it was probably my mistake to think, I'll not bother watching the trailer or looking anything up, so that I can go in completely fresh and had this delusion of a completely different movie. So yeah, I'd want to watch it again to see that. But also, it was fun. And if nothing else, I would watch it again if I was ever feeling nostalgic for my childhood, because it was such a snapshot of the 80s that I was like, oh, wow, this just feels like it reminds me of so many nights in the old 80s. You know what I mean? It just looked the piece.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it a lot this season, but I do find a lot of the movies that we discuss as just fun, and I don't think this is in fact, I think this exemplifies these type of cult movies perfectly. They remind us of a certain time and place, and we associate good memories with that viewing. What about you, Ian? What brings you back to this one?
It's definitely just that nostalgic level of, because I did watch it when we were younger, and it just brings back good memories of childhood and stuff, and it perfectly just has that 80s feel to it, which all things, even like when they make films nowadays and stuff like Stranger Things and whatnot, that's like set back in the 80s and stuff. It's cool. So yeah, it's definitely one to revisit.
Cool. Angela?
It is just a lovely nostalgic movie. Takes you right back to being in the 80s for those of us that were there. Very easy to watch. You don't have to think hard about the plot or anything like that. It moves at a good pace. It's just a fun watch.
Nice one. Jen?
Yeah, definitely something that'll probably be like I said, it's in my lineup for Halloween movies. It's got a good vibe to it. It's got that punk rock kind of feel to it, but with vampires and good music. So yeah, it's
Nice
worth
one.
revisiting over and over.
Great one. So yeah, we'll come to our final thoughts in a moment, but as usual, we asked what you out there in the real world thought of this one, and holy shit, guys, you were there for this. We had to remove the feedback request the day after we posted it because we were swamped. Isn't that right, Mike?
Yeah, it was wild. Popular movie.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
So before we round things up, we'll go over to the good lady Vianne one last time this year to hear what some of you thought. Take it away, Vianne.
Lots and lots and lots of feedback on the classic film, The Lost Boys. In fact, so much so that I'm just going to jump around a little and pick things at random because there was not a lot of controversy in the comments. People really, really enjoyed this film. So James Davis Mann says, speaking of, never was a fan, but then I don't do vampire movies. I did watch it back on release, and it did nothing for me, and have never revisited. So James was one of the few dissenting voices here. Of course, I would just randomly pick him first. Let's see, Rick Cowling, it's a bit of a mess at times, but it's okay. And they telegraphed The Master Vampire 3 stars. James Van Fleet, it's okay. Good saxophone guy, good final line. Parasitic Seth, I loved it. Wasn't that late 80s? Been so long since I've seen it, but I remember loving it. Let's see. Ivan Lana, our friend Ivan. I think it's the location that really made this movie good. The fairground, the beach, the ocean all tie on together. So lovely. Classic movie. And I think Ivan's really onto something here because atmosphere is so important in this film and location is such a big component of atmosphere. I would say the location and the lighting really, really are two big things that tie this film together. Andy Falconer from I Love the 80s, 6 out of 5 stars, brilliant film. Andrew Gedrose, I hope I'm saying your name right, thinks that Near Dark was better. Thomas Borge just wants to eat popcorn and watch it. Popcorn, popcorn, popcorn emoji. Somebody else saying Near Dark, that's John Durling Lennon from Silver Screen thinks Near Dark was also better. Mark Cummings from Cult Cinema and TV, classic, one of my all-time favorite films, loved it as a kid, still love it now. Adrian Contemplates from the Discord server, still a good watch. That bridge is 3 miles north of me. Folks still go there for a lot of pictures. That's pretty cool. L. Wilkie has a lot of thoughts here. I loved this film when it came out. It was the first film I saw where the vampires were the same as us, but with fangs. LOL. I always disliked the old Dracula films where he just appeared, flashed his teeth, took a bite, and was off again. Love him and leave him, so to speak. Boring and laughable. Vampires brought to life were definitely for me. Back then, I'd have definitely given it a 5, but since I've seen so much more live vampires, I'd give it 4.5 because it also has a good soundtrack, and I love the old grandpa. Thank you, Al, for your thoughts here. I remember my brother, who was 2 years older than me when we were kids, because we grew up in the 80s and 90s, telling me that The Lost Boys was the scariest film he had ever seen. And I remember having that built up in my own mind for so long that when I finally saw it, I mean, I'm notoriously hard to scare, but I was like, this isn't scary, but it is an interesting film. Let's see, Glenn Brooks only gives it 2.5 if you remove the nostalgia attachment. And to look as good and cool as David Forever, I'd drink the world dry. So, he says 2.5, but that sounds like high praise to me. So, I think overall it's got fairly good reviews. We do have a couple of detractors, but that's to be expected. It was the 80s, and it's not for everyone. So, with that, I'm going to send it back to the studio. Here's to you, DK.
Awesome. Thank you, Vianne. Wishing you a happy holiday season. And thank you to you out there for letting us know what you think. I can only apologize if we didn't read yours out, but there really was just so much love for this one. So, as always, if you feel you missed out, drop us a line on our socials or in the comments below and let us know what you think. So, with that in mind, it brings us to the final thoughts of us in the studio. Will we be as positive as you guys out there? Well, we'll soon see as we go around and ask everyone for a final conclusions and score out of 5 for this one. Angela, do you want to go first on this?
as I said before, it's a fantastic, fun film. It's worth going back to time and again. And yes, sometimes things don't necessarily age all that well, but you can look past it. I would give it a 4.8 out of 5.
4.8. Okay, fair enough. What about you, Jenn?
I'd give it about 4.5, maybe. It's a really good movie. Of course, there are parts that are not quite perfect, but that's just nature of things. Well, I do think that the makeup was really good. There were times when in close-ups where you could just, it was because it was had to be so heavily packed on that you could see it like cracking. But the movie itself is really good. Like I said, you get vampires, you get good music, you get that nice little punk 80s vibe. It's a good watch. It's worth it for anybody that is considering it.
I would give it a 4.9 because I realize it's not a perfect movie, but I just love it so much.
Yeah. So definitely for me, it's like a 4.5 out of 5. It's a classic for me, and I still watch it regular. Soundtrack's excellent. Yeah, it's definitely one I'll keep revisiting and hopefully introduce other people into it as well.
Nice one. Over to you, Mike.
That was a wild ride. I probably shouldn't have gone in completely cold. I always assumed this was a serious vampire horror flick. In my defense, the first half doesn't do much to challenge that assumption. Tonally, it's all over the place, not really settling in until the third act. And to be honest, I'm not sure Joel Schumacher has the finesse to pull off ironic cheese. More than once, it felt very obvious to me this came from the director of Batman and Robin. The performances are a mixed bag. Most of the cast seem to know what kind of film they're in, hamming it up appropriately. But Kiefer Sutherland, Jason Patric, and Jami Gertz act like they're in Bram Stoker's Dracula. At times, the gothic melodrama, swelling score, and straight-faced delivery make it feel like you're watching an epic Meatloaf video interrupted by clips from What We Do in the Shadows. Still, once the film leans into the fun, it's easy to go along for the ride. It's not as sharp a youth vampire story as Near Dark or Buffy, not as clever a horror comedy as Evil Dead, and not quite the 80s kitsch fest of Gremlins, but it's fun, funny, and unpretentious, and by the end, it won me over. So to summarize, it's a film that takes too long to find its tone, has uneven performances, and some, let's say, questionable direction. But ultimately, I got it. I had fun. I'm looking forward to rewatching it now that I know what I'm in for. More of a graze than a deep bite, but it still drew blood. And I said 3.5 out of 5.
Fair enough. I love this one. Granted, it's not without its flaws, and I do recognise them. It's not perfect. It's heavy on the tropes, and at the end of the day, it's a popcorn movie through and through. But as far as Schumacher films go, this is the one that kind of resonates with me. The cast is extremely personable, most of whom give really great performances. It's got an interesting little subtext on teen alienation, lure of addiction, and its consequences on the family. But more than that, it's sexy, it's funny, it's extremely stylish, as I said earlier, for that period anyway. The colours pop on screen. It's got a musical soundtrack that is, in my opinion, amongst the top 10 all-time greats. And every single time I watch this, it feels as fresh to me as the first time. It just flies by, and it's one of those movies I always come away from with a smile on my face. So yeah, that's why I'm going to give the Lost Boys 4.5. So yeah, a few scores here to work out, but by taking those into account, it gives our final film of the year, The Lost Boys, a cult classic score of 4.45 out of 5.
Can confirm because I just double checked the same thing.
Nice one. I mean, I had a feeling it was going to be in the top echelon, but it's still nice to see it play out. Are you guys all happy with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. So that's it for this episode and for this year. I hope you've enjoyed your time with us all today, and if you're now feeling in the mood for a rewatch over the holiday season, well, I can't say I blame you. As for us here, all that's left for me is to thank my guests jumping onto this one. So without further ado, thank all of you for joining us today. Have you had a good time?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
Because, you've all been regulars here. We've already got your links. So should any of our listeners, want to track you down, stalk you, well, there's plenty of opportunity to do so. But do any of you guys have anything particular you want to draw attention to?
So just after this, about a week after this goes out, Silver Screen Regular Flavor are doing a review of the slightly festive themed Batman Returns. Don't worry, that's not the Joel Schumacher one. And around just before Christmas, December the 20th, Cinema Classics is going to be looking at a genuine classic, which I won't spoil except to say that maybe you might want to lasso the moon for somebody. And we'll leave that at that.
So, yeah, as far as we're concerned, that's it for this season. I'd like to thank all my guests for this year, both the ones who've joined us on our regular discussions, as well as our special guests who graciously joined me for the interviews. Again, if you missed them, please go and check those out. I'd also like to thank my ever-dependable team of Nick, Vian, and old Mike here for being with me every step of the way this year. I'd also like to thank you, the listeners out there, for coming with us on these cinematic journeys, or car crashes, whichever you prefer. We'll be, hopefully, assuming, World War III doesn't break out, back in the new year with yet more cult movies, fantastic guests, and one or two surprises along the way. So if you've enjoyed yourself with us today, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll hopefully see you then. Until then, have a very happy holiday season to you and your loved ones. Wish you a safe and peaceful holiday season. Until next time, remember, they're only noodles.
You have been listening to the Cult Classic Show, part of the Silver Screen Podcast. Created, written, and hosted by DK. Editing by Nick. Produced by Mike Wilson. Feedback section produced by Lady Vienne. Opening credits by Ian Sanderson. Music by Timeless Journey. Follow us on social media. Links to all of our social media pages can be found on our link tree. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. This has been a Mad Badger production for the Media Matters Podcast Network. Copyright 2024. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next time. And remember, no matter where you go, there you are.